Good morning, everyone. So welcome to the second webinar of the Seamless Middle East Retail and E-commerce series. Today we have a 60-minute panel discussion entitled Reaching Untapped Customers as E-commerce Demand Skyrockets. We're lucky to be joined by 4 industry experts today who've kindly agreed to share their insights as we discuss soaring e-commerce demand and how businesses are adapting. So joining us as panelists today are Majed Tahan, who is the co-founder and CEO of Danube Online and AYM Commerce, Paolo Cinelli, who is the Chief Information and Digital Officer for Al Sulaiman Group, Sajjad, who is the Vice President of E-commerce and Digital at Azadea Group, and moderating the session for us today is Christina Ioannidis, who is the CEO at Aquitude. So in a moment, I'm going to hand over to Christina so that we can get started. Can I just ask all panelists to turn on their webcams and their microphones? And whilst everyone does that, I'd just like to remind all webinar attendees that you can ask questions throughout the panel session, and our panelists will do their best to answer them. So without further ado, Christina, I'd like to hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Julia, and thank you very much to the Seamless team for having the foresight and the up-to-dateness to actually organize this session. I'm delighted to be with such industry heavyweights. As all the panelists have been introduced, I would be very keen to start off with one first question. So the session title is all about how e-commerce is skyrocketing. So what are the business capabilities which have become more critical in the time of COVID-19? Can I ask Paolo this question first?
Sure. Thank you, Christina. Yes, indeed. We see this massive increase and sudden increase of digital commerce and its importance for our customers, especially when our stores are closed due to restrictions. That's the only way customers can shop. So what we see as becoming more important is the ability to orchestrate orders and manage the fulfillment, because we see that this number of orders is increasing very fast, and also we see more parcel orders than before. So they require a different approach and a different level of flexibility compared with our normal operations. We see web and app analytics becoming more important, because now we get different types of data and massive amount of data to interpret and use to our ability to understand the customer. I would say also the ability to integrate fast and connect and let's say interact with partners is becoming more important. Startups, cloud providers, etc. Less important, to answer the second part of the question, is for us typically what relates to physical retailing, and that's kind of obvious when the stores are closed. You know, the ability, but I think it will also become more important later, after the crisis ends, hopefully soon, because the physical communication, for example, is at least the digital communication is at least as important as the physical communication now, if not even more, for example. Just to,
Thank you for that, Paolo. I've got loads of questions and I'm going to jump into that, and then I will go to the other panelists on exactly the same question. What is the parcel order difference that you have seen, if you allow me to ask that quite specifically?
Well, if you know, our main retail business is IKEA. So when there is the ability to order online, and we have seen a massive increase, 4- or 5-fold increase of online orders, people take advantage of that and feel free to order smaller quantities.
Okay.
So yeah, that generates like a long tail of parcel orders, and of course that challenges our picking capabilities and for last mile fulfillment.
Great, thank you for that. Everybody knows IKEA. I don't think there's a person on this planet who doesn't know and love IKEA. I'm obviously very biased.
I hope so.
Can I pass the same question on to Sajjad? And Sajjad, can you tell us a little bit more about your business as well?
Sure. So I think, you know, Azadea are a retail group. We operate in 8 markets, everywhere from Egypt through to the Levant and the GCC. We operate in fashion, F&B, and lifestyle. So we have brands like Mango in fashion. We have brands like Paul and Butcher Shop in F&B, and brands like Virgin Megastore within our lifestyle business. Many of those brands are now online. And you know, one of my jobs is to really manage that e-commerce and digital strategy across those three divisions. But I think in terms of your question, Christina, I think you know, I absolutely agree. We see a lot of what my colleague just mentioned in terms of the differences in parcels and the different sort of, you know, spike that we've seen. But I think for me, I think it's great to start at a context level, and I don't think it's really about, you know, scaremongering or being pessimistic, but you know, the reality is, until we have a vaccine, this new norm environment where social distancing will govern, you know, how frequently we go to restaurants, how we're going to shop, you know, for fashion products in store. You know, there's a limitation on the number of people that can, you know, enter physical retail. There's limitations in terms of refunds and returns in this region. You know, social distancing is going to dictate how easy or how difficult it will be to travel abroad, how our children will be educated and develop social skills. So, you know, maybe with a vaccine in 2021 and mass production, maybe by the end of 2021, we could be back to the old norm. But I think what we have to understand as retailers, as marketeers, is that during the next 9 to 12 months, the behavior of our consumers will change forever. And, you know, what does that mean when we say it will change forever? Well, I think customers are going to value convenience more than ever before. And that's great for someone that works in digital. But I think consumers in the new norm, everything will be done from home, and everything will be done with much more thought about when you're going to venture outside. So I think, you know, how many of us will go back to, you know, working 5 days a week from the office? You know, you look at the disruption of hyperlocal services, it's never been so prominent. So I think this whole convenience thing is going to become so much bigger and so much more important to customers. And then if you think about the behaviors that's going to migrate, whether it's, you know, digital communication, digital shopping, digital education, digital socializing. Now, we all know as guys that have worked within digital is that, you know, trying to change behavior to get people online, it can be difficult. But once customers migrate, whether it's digital education, digital communication, it's very difficult to go back. So I think then if you take sort of the macro impact of this time lag that we're going to have before we get back to the old norm, and you think about the behavior change that we will all go through as consumers and the adoption of doing things in a different way, I think, you know, the opportunities are obviously very, very obvious, and I don't think we need to go into those. But, you know, you just hear some of the discussions that, you know, there's hundreds of sellers trying to onboard onto the general merchandise platforms, you know, the souks, the Amazons, the Noons, all that sort of stuff, and they can't onboard them quick enough. Same within the fashion space. You speak to the payment gateways, the guys that do the integration of your payment technology. If you're building your own website, they used to quote 1 to 2 weeks to do a normal integration, is now taking them 6 to 8. So I think we're seeing this massive rush, which is what we'd all expect. But I think the turning point is similar to the turning point that we've seen in nature. So, you know, we've seen with this lockdown that, you know, definitely there's been a real positive impact on nature, and I think that's really positive. And I think retail needs to do something similar. You know, if you think about in the States, I think there's been something like 200,000 stores that have closed, and that's nearly 50% of US retail square footage. And that's going to have a massive impact once those stores try and reopen at the end of April or in terms of the next few months. And I think the opportunity therefore is for retailers to really grasp and really bring digital into the heart of their business. And that doesn't mean let's just go online with a website or with a mobile app. It's really thinking about over the next 12 months, as a retailer that maybe 4, 5, 10% of your business was online, that's probably going to be at least 30 to 40% of your business is now going to be online, perhaps even more depending on the category. So I think for me, it's really about what a business is doing to simulate 30, 40, 50% of their business is going to be transacted online. And therefore, what are the right investments you need to make as a business in terms of your logistics, in terms of your warehousing, which won't be as easy as it was because of social distancing. And therefore, what are the right investment levels when cash is obviously difficult right now to make sure that you can ride that wave, but then also manage your store footprint, because if 30 to 40% of your business is going to be online, you really need to look at the role of the store. Is it now a warehouse? Therefore, do you need to pay the same rent? What are the right locations? What are the right inventory levels? What are the right people costs? So I think for me, that's really the opportunity in terms of the challenge that sort of post-COVID retailing brings to us because of the change in consumer behaviors.
Brilliant, Sajjad. So such a wonderfully insightful and deep response. Majed, over to you then. The question is, what business capabilities become more and which ones become less important in the time of COVID-19?
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So what we've seen in this period of time is that a lot of features that we had become really handy. As per my colleague said, that the demand has grown significantly higher. So companies with good infrastructure has actually capitalized on this during these times. So we have a lot of technologies that became really handy, like aisle mapping for us for picking. So we pick from an actual supermarket. Our range of SKUs is a bit high, and the actual supermarket is big in size. So the showrooms are really big. So we have an aisle mapping technology which enables us to pick in a certain pattern. This technology became really handy. Optimized route for increased delivery output, also that become really handy. Integration, as per Sajjad, integration now with third-party aggregators like the delivery companies, because you know when you have so much demand, it actually exceeds your fleet capacity, and you have to still be able to keep on taking orders. So that opened another channel for us to be able to integrate with the aggregators, which is an option we didn't take a closer look at before this crisis. But right before, we were actually exploring few options for integration with other aggregators, and we've made the test and it was a success. But we didn't launch it because back then our existing fleet or our fleet are actually able to cope with the demand. So when the crisis started, we actually had this feature handy, so we started integrating with the aggregators, which significantly increased our output as well. So along with the different payment methods, so payment method had become really challenging during this crisis because we're a cash-driven society. Majority of our transactions happens will be a cash-on-delivery method. So that was the preferred payment method for our customers. So when the crisis happened, everyone was actually urging retailers to step away from the cash handling. So we completely stopped cash on delivery. And us, for operation, is actually a much smoother operation without the handling of cash. This is a step we really wanted to do before the crisis, but it was a very risky move because majority of our clients are actually cash-driven clients. But now we have all the payment methods available on the app. People are actually adopting this method, and they understand that there is no cash on delivery currently. It's all contactless payments. And they're transacting and paying all the for their groceries online. So this is again a very handy tool. One of the things is that during this crisis, people had become really, scared, and actually they become really needy. So we had to interact more with our customers. Means that our customer care center has to grow also. Because even with the growing demand, you got people that wants to talk to you, that wants to actually ask about things, ask about their deliveries, ask about their orders. So you couldn't just turn off the CS channel. So again, we were getting thousands and thousands of calls every single day. We had again to expand our CS center, which again, another feature becoming handy was integrating with the with other call center suppliers. So that again gave us an edge on how to keep on close to our customers and communicate. So a lot of things had become really handy, especially with the increasing demand on the servers. And we were actually monitoring the load quite closely. We're expanding as we're going. So tech team has actually working 7 days a week ever since this crisis started, and it's been challenging, but we're coping. We're trying to cope as much as possible.
Thank you for that, Majed. I was actually going to ask you about how do you manage that load, the spikes and the troughs, and because from an operational perspective, it's a big, not only investment, but agility that's required internally to kind of shift and expand in terms of whether it is your call center facilities or it's the on-site load management. What are the things you've learned that other people who are listening in could actually tap into in terms of managing those peaks and troughs?
So actually, it's as you mentioned, it's quite a lot of things that you need to take care of. So if you're taking care of tech, then you have another need in CS. If you take care of CS, you have another need in ops, logistics, picking, packing. So what we've learned during this is that we have to learn from while we're going. We have to choose the most important sector of the business to give a big focus on. Yeah, you will still get complaints. People will still complain because you weren't actually ready to cope with 400, 500% extra orders and even up to 10 times extra load on the servers. So you will have to actually choose the sectors that you need to focus on and empower your people. So we empowered our team heads, we empowered our team leads, and we actually communicated with them very closely. Is that without you, our team leads, we cannot do this. We cannot succeed during these times. We had to give more authority to our leads because we need them to take decisions on the spot. We need them to be able to actually cope with this. They cannot just go and follow the same procedures that we used to follow back in the days where we were all in the office and things were very normal and all these things. This has changed. So the first thing to do is actually need to empower your team heads. We operate in more than 10 cities across the kingdom. The kingdom is a big country. So we have operations in 10 cities. So you have to empower the leads in the remote cities that are working. We have regular communication. We have video cam. We have video chats. We have conferences going on. But the most important thing is that we've seen that when you more empower the team, they will be able to make decisions. So we were very close with them. We gave them the feeling that they're part of this. And we are always saying that together we can fight this, but as a management team that is sitting in the headquarters, we cannot do this without really empowering our team and giving them even more and more authorities. So that was one of the key things that made us survive this.
Thank you very much, because you're now we're talking about e-commerce. We have a tendency to focus on technology, but what you're saying, one of the key things that's come out of COVID-19 and overcoming these challenges come down to people, not just the tech. So that's great. You're bringing that in. Sajjad, you are nodding on that front. Do you have anything else you would like to add?
Yeah, I just concur with everything that Majed says, and I think perhaps in retail we've also been a little bit more fortunate that we've had resources that we could deploy to support this enormous volume of growth, whether that's been in the operation, the picking and packing, or the customer services, or even the delivery side. And I think obviously, a lot of us, all of us have been caught unaware in terms of the growth that's come from online. But I think when you have, when you work with great people and great motivated guys from, the salespeople that we have in our stores, through to the people that we have in the warehouses, through to the guys that work in the back office, and some of the solutions that the guys have managed to cook up just to be able to meet the customer demand has been really great to be a part of. And sometimes it's the simplest solutions, and I think all of us have had challenges with couriers. There's no doubt in every market, some of the GCC markets have perhaps suffered more than others, but there's always solutions. And I think the beauty of working within our industry is if you've got the right people around you, you can find solutions. They may be a little bit, they may not be the perfect solutions at certain times, but when you've had a growth of 400-500%, I think gone are the days of trying to perfect something. You just really need to try and meet that demand with everything that you've got.
Great, thank you for that. Now, I've got a question to Paolo. Paolo, Sajjad earlier talked about how the shift will take place with managing the retail, the physical retail channel, and the growth of e-commerce, and how the retail itself, physical store, its role will have to change. Now, what are the premises, and from a customer experience perspective, to create this what would be an omni-channel experience, but that adds value to the customer? So, as Sajjad said, would, for example, the in-store channel become the physical store become purely a warehouse or a destination? I mean, you already do this as IKEA, so it's great that we're asking you this question. How do you think that other retailers would need to adapt in this omni-channel view of the world that we're no doubt moving into through COVID-19?
Thank you. Yeah, but before I answer directly this, I cannot resist to underline what the great points that Majed and Sajjad have mentioned. One is this readiness to before COVID. Yeah, so I think companies that have somehow prepared for digital transformation well enough have the foundations to build on them and create new capabilities, accelerate them through this as a response to this crisis. So in a way, let's say maybe the bad news for those who are less prepared are that that they will be struggling more to respond, and the who are prepared is that they can leverage what they have invested on and activate things in 2 weeks that maybe have been discussed for 2 years. Sometimes, at least this is what we have seen, and also this. I really like this point about what I could call maybe flat gardens that I have experienced. So Majed was mentioned empowering the teams. In fact, this happened even without really, giving formal authority. So what happened, I've seen is, we have, as senior management mentioned priorities, and then teams without even meeting each other, just online, have picked up and started to. I've seen people, let's say, taking the lead, even regardless of which function they belong to. It became very flat. It became just, whoever has the leadership that is required and enough knowledge to lead the others in implementing new opportunities and new capabilities, has just taken the lead. So I wanted to underline these 2 points, which are really amazing, because they are lessons. Why? I mean, what prevents us once this is over to actually continue in this way? We need to reflect on that. Is this empowerment limited to the crisis, or shouldn't we use it beyond that? It's a great lesson for us, I think, to capitalize upon. Then to your question, maybe getting closer to your question, what is important, let's say, from a customer experience point of view and omni-channel point of view, is really to see the world as really omni-channel. So not we have heard about the phygital maybe experience that at least I've heard in some previous articles and discussions. So we shouldn't really have any friction between channels. And again, this is something already discussed many times, but it becomes even more important now that our business, like Sajjad mentioned, it's the digital commerce spike is going to at least partially stay. will it be 20%, 30%? I don't know exactly. But you know, for us, let's say for IKEA, if it's 20% of the business, it's the biggest store we have, right? So we should treat it as such. For example, we review our stores constantly across the world. IKEA is a franchise system, so the stores are reviewed in a cycle every year. Multiple stores are reviewed to comply with the concept, to use the learnings from the other stores. Do we do this on our web channel, right? And you know, because if we give that attention to the physical stores, we should give at least the same attention to digital channels, and you know, to show. And in a way, it's even easier. You can do that from your desk. You can review IKEA.com and our other channels without even without even visiting a country. Of course, it would be great to see each other as well, but that's an example of something that's a practice that we should accelerate and enhance, because now this channel is becoming extremely important. So no frictions. I think it's also important to work out the total process in digital, in the omni-channel view. So it's not just taking orders; it's the entire chain of, you know, all the way to the delivering the orders and even post delivery support. You know, IKEA assembles products, or you can do it yourself. Customers can choose the option that they prefer, and yeah, so even, and also you have to deal with returns, you have to deal with reverse logistics. All these processes are really end-to-end and should be taken care of in total. I think this is becoming more and more important through Omnichannel. And then, yeah, there is also, in my opinion, a spirit of keeping things simple, because sometimes we can make things too complicated for the customers, and that's not a good experience. So maybe better to really keep things simple, like, I don't know, signing in to digital channels, you know, keeping things together, you know, when like giving our contact centers the possibility to have a unified view of our customers' interactions and transactions, as another example to simplify the work and simplify also the way the customer, you know, is dealt with. So sometimes to keep things simple, we have a complex problem to solve. I recognize that, but what I mean is keeping things simple, especially from the customer and co-workers.
Great, thank you for this, Paolo. Sajjad, you mentioned something earlier as we were talking right now about the changing of the role of the physical store. And I think you're someone who would love to share some ideas around the technology and how we could use technology to create new virtual experiences. So do you see a way that virtual reality, augmented reality could come in and actually speed up the process and the uptake of the digital e-commerce world?
Wow, that's an awesome question, Christina. So I think, actually, I think, you know, we when we looked at our 2020 strategy at Azadea, we looked at some of the global trends that we thought were going to disrupt the market. And actually, and I know it's a little bit contentious right now, even more so, but I actually put 5G as one of the things that's really going to accelerate the use of these experiences. And we'll leave the 5G conspiracy COVID theories out today, I think. And let's just take 5G as the technology that it is. And I think with the, you know, if you think about the smartphone revolution and 4G, et cetera, and we all know how mobile devices have taken over, 5G is just going to completely change the way that we develop our customer experiences. So, you know, how we're so worried about load, just as we were speaking about earlier, I think that the speed at which customers are going to be able to download augmented reality and virtual reality are going to give retailers a whole new way, or brand owners a whole new way to create virtual experiences that are rich, that are interactive, and that will offer an alternative to, or not an alternative, add another channel of choice to the customer when it comes to experiencing a brand or a product, or becoming interactive with augmented reality sellers, if you like. So I think actually 5G will be the thing that will drive that more than just the current situation, because I think we need the higher bandwidth, but then we also need the content available from the different brand owners and from the different retailers to take advantage of that new power and speed of download.
Great. Majed, any thoughts of new technology driving new customer experiences that I've just asked Sajjad?
Well, yeah, there could be a lot of things, as per Sajjad, also augmented reality. Anything that adds to the customer experience is key. For us in the grocery, it's more about efficiency and about catering to the customer needs. So we go more into the the kitchen thing, recipe features, anything that could, and then we're also exploring that how could customers interact with each other, post recipes and share comments and all these things. So it's very key, a lot of technologies, but I think it's actually a different set of technologies per sector, as per Sajjad as well. So it changed from a sector to the other.
Okay. Now you mentioned earlier about consumer shifting in terms of payment processes and having to go contactless. So this has been a big debate. Cash on delivery in this region has been the #1 payment or desired payment process. Now my question to you is, did customers already have credit cards, but it was a trust issue? Or did you find that stopped them, or did you find that they didn't and somehow they managed to get their hands on credit cards to then be able to make the transactions?
That's actually 2 points here. So first, yes, it is a trust issue with many of the customers. For us in Danube Online, we're a trusted brand. So people trusted the brand and they just shifted to online payments. The other point is that recently, Mada card, which is the debit card in Saudi Arabia, was actually also accepted online. This was not the case earlier this year. So now you can pay with your debit card and your credit card online, along with the Apple Pay feature that was also recently introduced in the kingdom. So there is basically a lot of payment methods which caters to all needs. And as well as we used to have the portable point of sale machines with the drivers. So people are actually also used to pay not cash on delivery, but by credit card on delivery. So the society here tends to pay for stuff when they receive them. But when this crisis happened, actually a very big shift in behavior happened. And we actually were continuously communicating with our customers that use the payment method. It's very safe. You can actually pay with all the credit cards. You can pay with Mada card as well, your debit card. And again, you have the Apple Pay. So this was a very big move for us. And again, due to the extreme load that was happening on all the portals, people were actually also having some difficulties adapting to this, or you know what? So it's a big shift in behavior, but people are accepting it as we go.
Great. And now all of you are in very, very advanced e-commerce businesses. There's obviously a high chance that there are people listening to this webinar who are at a different development stage in their business from an e-commerce perspective. Getting payments is one of the most critical things, as we've just talked about, Majed. How would you advise now the payment providers to make things easier for other players who may be starting off? And I'm thinking startups, I'm thinking SMEs, family businesses who may not necessarily have ventured into e-commerce before. How would what would payment companies, or what could be done by payment companies in order to facilitate this transition?
Look, Sajjad mentioned this earlier. It used to be very difficult to integrate. It used to take a very long time. It's a very long process. But currently, all these payment suppliers, they're actually easing the process. So what I can tell to all the people that are trying to get online payment features in their app or their websites, that it's a quite a very nice feature to have. Currently, you have to have it. I mean, people will not transact on cash. People will tend to transact by online payments. You can have it on stages. It's actually a thing that you can integrate into phases. So you can start with the credit card, and then again you go with the debit card, and then Apple Pay. So what I say is that they should take it gradually, step by step, because it actually changes a lot in the operation, changes a lot in the way we reconcile, and the way we actually close our balances at everyday end. So it's a quite a new method, but you could learn it as you go. So what I suggest is that they take it step by step. The easiest way to do it is that you start with the credit cards. It's very easy to integrate with, and it's easier than the debit and Apple Pay to integrate.
Okay, thank you. Sajjad, any additions to that?
No, I think what Majed says is so spot on. I think, when I came to the region 6 years ago, payments was such a challenge, and cash on delivery was the only sort of tender. And we've seen such a move in terms of the different payment methods that are now online and digitized. And I think there's still, we're doing a lot of stuff locally in countries like Qatar and Kuwait, where we're sort of integrating with the local payment options like KNet and QNet. Of course, Apple Pay and Google Pay around. So I think there's always the evolution for even maybe the bigger guys. But I think for the smaller businesses, the ease of now creating websites through the likes of a Shopify, which costs you very little. And if you're only talking about of 100 orders a day, a Shopify platform with a quick payment gateway integration, you're talking about hundreds of pounds to get live if you can do it yourself, or someone can easily get it done for you for not a lot of money at all. So I think that it's never been easier to go online, to be frank. And especially if you've got a business of 50 to 100 orders a day, you can manage that quite efficiently and effectively within a small platform such as a Shopify, and the payment gateways are there to support.
Great, thank you. Paolo, what are your views on what we would advise the payment providers, not just the startups or the middle-sized companies, the payment providers, in accelerating that?
Yeah, well, I would actually totally subscribe to what Majed and Sajjad have mentioned. Maybe I would add one more thing, which is, or reflection, let's say, which is that the adoption by the customers of the simplest ways of payment, of accepting payments, is extremely fast. So once there used to be a longer lead time between something that happens innovative, that appeared innovatively in the market or in the industries, and it becoming mainstream or adopted widely. Now it is, you launch something. If it's really good, somebody launches something. If it's really good, it becomes an expectation in no time. So the bar raises very quickly, and since again it's becoming simpler and simpler to implement these new things, we really need to learn to move very fast, because the moment the moment somebody has it, it's the norm, and the customers switch very quick to adoption. So this is a pace that we have not seen before in the, let's say, before the digital era, I would say. I don't have really much to add in terms of the payments providers, other than really adding a variety in portfolio of different providers as much as possible, so that you give more choice, and they can be a combination of the big and the small. In terms of back to the technologies, I wanted to add something as well to your previous question. One thing that I can also generalize is that integrating new technologies in general, not only payment, is becoming easier. We all, we know about APIs and all this. For example, we are playing a lot with augmented reality as an example, and we have already now, you can find here in Saudi Arabia, actually we are quite much on the forefront within the IKEA world for some reasons to bring augmented reality into our apps and web services. So you can already now, for several products, visualize the products in your space during the shopping journey. So we have not just created a game that allows you to see your sofa in your bed, lounge, or any furniture in your space, but also to buy that during your shopping journey. So you can see it through your screen. You can see how it fits with your environment and click to add to cart. Yeah, that's an example that has come very handy for people, especially in these times where they cannot go to the store and see it physically. And of course, it minimizes returns because you're more confident that this will fit in your space. And the other example I wanted to mention is a virtual shopping solution that we have just rolled out here in Saudi Arabia. To be honest, we copy pasted that from another IKEA in Greece, IKEA colleague or company. But literally in 2 weeks, we've been able to integrate it into our website, both on any device. So you can actually go through the store and navigate through like in a street view journey, and then also there are tags you can click on and buy, add to cart. Yeah, so I've been impressed by the speed in which we've been able to do this. It's really like a simple code injection into our website. We did our security tests. We did everything in like 2 weeks and a half, and it went live. And of course now we can add to it. We can have tags, we can have panorama views and other things. The simplicity, of integrating this again gives the people a relief. Like at least I cannot go to an IKEA store. I mean, maybe not all of them love it, but many of them come every day. Now they can't, so they can do that from their screen. And it's mitigation to all the stress that this lockdown is creating.
Great, thank you for sharing that. I was actually inspired by IKEA when I asked the question earlier to Sajjad. So thank you for making the point back to what you're doing. Have you seen an increase in conversion as a result of these introductions, or do you see it as more of a brand building engagement exercise?
Very, extremely good question. This is actually what we are measuring right now. So and it is one of the biggest questions. So it actually, this question is great because it gives me also the possibility to highlight again the importance of analytics. So this really, when you start, personally, I started even to myself to get more familiar with the specific tools, and what I found is a bit surprising. I don't know if the same for the others. I found that we have more tools than we actually expected. So there's a flurry of tools, analytic tools, free tools, paid tools, licensed tools, and so on. So it is not a problem. The problem is to actually have the skills and the competences and focus to actually use these tools. I admit I've personally taken a course, online course in one of these tools, because it brings me back to when I was a bit younger, and I used to do these things hands-on. But it's fun, and I've taken a couple of tutorials and small certificates, and I can now play with this myself. And of course, I don't have much time to do it, but it gives me the chance to encourage my people and my team to actually utilize this fantastic resources.
Great. Thank you for that, Paolo. So we've got now loads of questions coming in. So I'm going to start with the first one, and I'll throw this to Sajjad if we can. If we've got time. What differences, Sajjad, have you seen between the e-commerce early adopters and the new buyers? So the differences between those who were early adopters of e-commerce versus the more recent buyers. There's a second question to this. Do they have different expectations? Have they exposed assumptions you have made about your customers? So there's 3 in 1.
So I think look, the early adopters of e-commerce in all markets were generally price-driven consumers. So you know, if you saw how the likes of soup.com grew and the electronics category grew both in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, it was all predominantly driven by price. So I think those early adopters were very, very deal and price focused. I think now, I think like I mentioned earlier, it's very much more about convenience, and despite the challenges of supply chain and customer experience. So I think, you know, if you just look at the transition into online grocery, you know, you now have to, in some places you have to wait up to 5 or 6, 7 days to get a grocery delivery. However, if you shop around, you can find it for 1 or 2 days, or possibly even the same day or next day, and price isn't so much the priority. So I think that the newer buyers are definitely coming into a much more mature landscape, where the baseline of the customer experience is far better than it was 4 or 5 years ago, but their needs are probably slightly different, and convenience, customer experience and service are probably more important now than they ever have been before.
Right, thank you. Majed, do you have anything to add? Because Sajjad mentioned groceries, and that's your area as well.
Yes. So as you mentioned, it's actually all about convenient now. The thing we also noticed is that now the customers are much more relaxed than they used to be in the beginning of April. So in the beginning of April, they were very like always angry, very needy. Communicating with them was very difficult. So we had to keep on telling our staff, keep on telling our people, our girls in the customer care centers, that please just be patient with the clients. They are the customers. They're actually terrified. They don't know, this is all new to them and to us. So you should expect that the attitude will be different. But going into the month of April, we've seen that the people are now much more relaxed. They're now adapting more to the situation. They understand now more what to expect from us in terms of availability, in terms of the timings. We also improved a lot. Now we have same-day delivery as well. We have second-day deliveries. Stocks are very good. There've never been out of stocks, like major out-of-stock incidents, but people were actually scared that this will happen. We kept telling them, this won't happen, this won't happen. You have to trust us on this. But their behavior was very, actually, you can say aggressive in the beginning. But now we can see that they're much more relaxed. A lot of people now are adapting online as something new to them, not as a need. So at the beginning of April, it was actually something that been looked at as a need. So people were actually reluctant to do so, but they felt that they have to download the app, they have to register, and they have to place an order. So this was something they didn't like. So by time, and now you can say that people are actually having fun ordering online. You can see more people now shopping for fashion, more people, maybe also Paolo can emphasize here, logging more on the IKEA platforms. So now the behavior is changing. So what happened the early month, that it was a shock, people took a shock and then they adapted to it. But again, now we can see that the customers are much more relaxed, and they're much more, you know what, they know how to use the apps now. A lot of our new users had become frequent. We can see 2.2, 2.3x a week transaction now per customer, which is a very, very high frequency for us as well. So this is what's happening. It's changing to the best. And as I need to also add another point to what Paolo said, that whenever we introduce a new thing, we immediately see the reaction. So we in Danube Online operates from many cities. So we had to activate more than 20 stores in 2 weeks. So we had one of the stores that my brother was actually in that city, and he was always asking me, when are we going live? When are you going live? So when we were ready to go, but before the actual test, I told them, listen, I'm gonna open the slots for you. You just place an order, and I'm gonna close it again. Just I want to see the entire flow. I want to see the team are ready and everyone is ready. So we've opened the store for 6 minutes and we closed it. And then when I was talking to the supervisor, he said we have actually 28 orders in that 6-minute window. So it's like that people were actually waiting on the app. Whenever they see it was available, they just click place orders. So 28 orders in 6 minutes. That was a shock for us. It was early in the beginning of April. Then we realized that whatever you do will have a huge impact. People are actually waiting for your services. People do need this to activate. So that gave us even more, it gave us a lot of energy to be able to execute more, activate more stores, and even serve more people.
Wow, thank you for that. I'm going to jump to another question because they're coming in thick and fast. So the next one is all about logistics. How do you rate the importance of robotics and automation in supporting e-com retail for fulfillment after seeing the impact of COVID-19 on your operations? And there's a second part to this. Do you think the decision for companies to automate will be based on will be always based on very short ROI?
Okay, so now
Majed,
yes, we're actually exploring robotics now. This was something we were actually talking about last year and at year end. It was like something new. We want to explore this, and it was a very nice topic to talk about in meetings. But now actually we're exploring it really. So we need robots because our fulfillment, our pace of fulfillment is growing significantly high. We need to operate from bigger spaces, bigger areas. There are some heavier things to be lifted. So robotics will become handy. But yes, we are exploring this. I leave it to the guys also. Maybe they have more things to add on that topic, especially for IKEA maybe.
Great. Paolo, you've been nominated.
Thank you, Majed. Yeah, for sure. Robotics is of growing importance, and we already do operate. Within the Al Suleiman Group, we have actually a logistics company called Flow, which already has quite some level of automation in the way we manage inventories, picking, and so on. But of course, the importance of that is massively increasing now. Let's say social distancing is one element that will accelerate it. Whatever will remain will make it more important for for machines to do their role in making sure that people are able to cope with social distancing. The increase of orders and online orders is another key driver to give us the efficiency, let's say, to prompt for the efficiency that is required to deal with this volume. Even in stores, since the IKEA stores are a mix of warehouse and shopping, and that also within stores it becomes very important. As an example, IKEA is not in this country now, but piloting somewhere else like an automated silo to be attached to a store where customers can, let's say, can pick up orders that they have ordered during the store tour, or even online, and this comes in a trolley already picked and packed in a trolley that they can just take and load their cars. An example. So there's a lot more to be invested on in this field and accelerated.
Okay, Sajjad, you were nodding around robotics. What are your views?
Sure. So I think some of it goes back to what I think I said at the beginning, and Paolo said the same, is that with the massive growth of volume and the social distancing, there will have to be a level of automation, implementation of robots to make sure that you can manage the social distancing and the volume. The biggest challenge that a lot of e-commerce businesses had with implementing robotics and automation was the cost. And a few years ago, if you're only 5% of your retail business, the business case just never stacked up for you to have a fully automated robotic warehouse. But I think now, as we're now saying that 20, 25, 30, we don't know what the number will be, but it's going to be at least 3 or 4 times what we are today in the next 12 to 18 months, the business case will make far more sense. So I think it will also be financially more possible to invest in those technologies and for it still to be profitable. I think like Paolo says, we've got brands that are live in Dubai where we've had the automated silos for click and collect orders, so where customers order online, the customer service team in the store pack the product, they put it basically into a large vending machine that can hold maybe 500-600 boxes. The customer gets sent a PIN code. When they enter the store, they just simply enter the PIN number into the silo machine. It's just like an ATM machine, and the box drops to the bottom. But I think where we'll see is that probably move one step forward, and I think we're going to very quickly see a real big increase in curbside collection and locker collection outside the store. So particularly with the increased pressure on movement and social distancing, and people perhaps being a little bit more reserved as to whether they want to go into malls and so on, I think we're definitely going to see a lot of retailers push forward on the curbside collection, as Paolo was mentioning, or the locker collection, whether it's silos or other forms of sort of hyper collection services.
Wow, thank you. We could go on for hours. We've got time for one more question. It's 11:56 according to my clock. So the final question will be, we've got one here. How do you think, and I think this probably will be our closing remarks, how do you think the current situation and spike in e-commerce will impact offline businesses long term? I know Sajjad's already started that conversation with his opening remarks. Anything you want to add on that?
I think for me, honestly, I think that the retailers that grasp this from a full supply chain and ecosystem perspective, I think they'll become 30, 40, 50% online businesses. I think the retailers that don't, we already see what's happening in the UK, what's happening in the States, and the retailers that haven't grasped this is really their last chance. We've always said stores will always be there. And I think in the future, I think we still believe stores will always be there. But particularly until a vaccine is found and the behavior of our consumer changes, I think we are going to see the role of the store narrowing. And therefore, I think, the quicker we look at our store footprints and reevaluate those and take that investment, invest it in your digital experience, build digital experiences that are just as good as the in-store experience. And I think for me, that's the key thing, is that this isn't necessarily a cost-cutting exercise. It's about, we talked about investment a number of times today. And I think because without that investment, you're not going to build the right supply chain, the right logistics infrastructure, have the right number of people in customer services, have the right picking technology. So I think it's really about taking this opportunity to reevaluate your store footprint and understand where your business will be in 2 or 3 years' time and make the right investment decisions.
Great, thank you. Majed, Paolo, anything you would like to add to that question around the impact?
Sure. For us, stores are going to stay. They have to be partially repurposed to add more to the experience that cannot be done online. Now, I think there is going to be let's say a short-term effect of after lockdown. People can't wait to go out and have an experience. Of course, they will be more cautious and wary of social distancing, but let's also not underestimate that as soon as we manage to get this under control, they will also have a wave of, well, let me go out. I've been at home for a month or two. Now I really want to be back into the physical world but it will not really go back to as it was before.
Thank you. Majed, 30 seconds left.
Okay, so I hope that things will go back to normal. I ask God to save us all. We would like to see the cities come busy again. We'd like to see people in the stores, and we would like also to give the customer the chance or the choice to even transact online or offline. We're working towards keeping the customers that we gained towards this pandemic, keeping them satisfied and transacting more with us. But we really hope to see the cities and everyone else going back to normal lives, and we perform business the way we do.
Great. Thank you very much. We're bang on time. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all.
Majed and Paolo.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Christina, and thank you all panelists for joining as well and sharing your insights. I hope you all enjoyed that. So that is the end of our webinar session for today. So thanks again to all of the audience for joining. The webinar will be accessible via our website for on-demand viewing. And if you do have any questions, please feel free to send them across via our website. So we have our next webinar at 11 AM next Wednesday, which will explore how to define and accelerate your new strategy for home delivery during COVID-19. So once again, thank you to all panelists for joining and the audience for listening, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Christina. Thank you, Julia. Nice to meet you, Paolo. Take care.
Great.
Bye.
Pleasure. Yeah. Bye.